Good evening, everyone. Behave. Well, it's good to see everyone. Nice and warm in here. I can understand the chambers not being as full based on how it feels outside. It is extremely, extremely cold. But welcome to City Hall. Colleagues, before we get into the actual agenda, I will say that there is a adjustment to the agenda that I'll be making, and I'll bring that up in just a moment. But at this time, we'll start out with a moment of silence. Thank you. I'll pass it over to Councilmember Freeman for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. It's our practice to stand to salute the flag and say the pledge together. If you'll join us. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Williams.
I'm here.
Mayor Pro Tem Middleton.
I'm here.
Councilmember Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Caballero.
Here.
Councilmember Cook.
Here.
Councilmember Freeman.
Present.
Councilmember Rist.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now pass it down to Councilmember Cook to start us off. With, no, I'm sorry. We have a ceremonial item. I'm going to pass this over to Mayor Pro Tem for National Mentoring Month proclamation.
Thanks. My thanks to His Honor for this opportunity to read this proclamation. Good evening to my honorable colleagues, all of you in chamber with us, and to all of our residents and neighbors and friends on whatever platform you may be watching. This is a proclamation for National Mentoring Month, and I'm honored to call our friend, Mr. DeWarren Langley, up to receive this proclamation. If you would join me, sir. Proclamation. Whereas, created in 2002 by the Harvard School of Public Health and Mentor, the National Mentoring Partnership, January is National Mentoring Month, an annual campaign to focus attention on the need for quality, consistent, and competent mentors. And whereas the goals of National Mentoring Month are to raise awareness of mentoring, recruit mentors, and equip mentors with the skills needed to support youth. And whereas a mentor is a person that provides support, guidance, and advice while devoting time to assist a young person to help them achieve their potential through a structured relationship. And whereas quality mentoring empowers youth to make positive choices, promote character development, support academic achievement, and social emotional learning. Research has demonstrated that mentoring programs have a significant positive impact on a variety of academic achievement measures. And whereas mentors serve a critical role in helping young people successfully prepare for the future of work and succeed in an ever-changing workforce. The City of Durham supports community-based mentoring programs as key community partners to support youth and their families. And whereas National Mentoring Month is the time of year to celebrate, elevate, and encourage mentoring and recruit caring adult mentors in the City of Durham. Now, therefore, I, Leonardo Williams, Mayor of the City of Durham, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim January 2025 as National Mentoring Month in the City of Durham, and urge all citizens to observe this month with appropriate ceremonies, activities, and programs. Witness my hand and the corporate seal of the City of Durham, North Carolina, this the 21st day of January, 2025. Thanks, man. Have some words?
So, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem asked if I had some words, and as I said,
always. You all know I've come before you many times to share in this proclamation, and I just want to say on behalf of the Charles Hamilton Houston Foundation, we thank you for proclaiming January 2025 National Mentoring Month. The Charles Hamilton Houston Foundation takes pride in our commitment to ensuring that academic success is not limited to theoretical knowledge alone. Our programs are designed with a practical focus, equipping boys and young men of color with tangible skills that are directly applicable to the competitive workforce. By aligning the curriculum with real-world demands and industry trends, we prepare them to meet the evolving needs of the job market and secure economic stability and mobility. Our goals in asking for this proclamation are as follows: to recruit and equip mentors with the skills needed to support youth. 2, advocate for the incorporation of work-based learning and mentoring to prepare and connect youth with real-world experiences where they are applying academic, technical, and soft skills to develop their employability while exploring and preparing for career pathways. And 3, support initiatives to close the academic, achievement, opportunity, and mentoring gaps and promote critical mentoring to support boys of color. And I also want to just mention some other organizations that support this mentoring that are doing great work here in this community. The Thomas Mentor Leadership Academy, Sidekicks Academy, the Durham Boys of Color Coalition, D.L. Forbes Youth Foundation, Durham Proud Program, Bull City Bulldogs Youth Football, Emily K. Center, the Durham Children's Initiative, Grace Incorporated, the We Are Kings program of Durham Public Schools, the We Are Queens program of Durham Public Schools, Rhoda Generation, Wall Street Juniors, My Brother's Keeper, Jubilee Home, Research Triangle Professionals, National Society of Black Engineers, Brother to Brother Mentoring Program, Big Brother, Big Sister of the Triangle, Boys and Girls Club of Durham and Orange Counties, Long Ball Program of Durham, I Am Me Girls, El Centro Hispano, Inspiring Minds Raleigh Durham, We Are, Amen Leadership and Mentoring Program, Young Male Achievers, Triangle Literacy Center, Fatherhood of Durham, North Carolina, Project Bill, the West End Community Foundation, Poof Teen Center, Stronger Together, the Salvation Army Boys and Girls Club, the Forgiven Sons, and Bull City Woodshop. You will receive additional information about each of these organizations via email. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. I'd also like to add that I'm Special Assistant to the Mayor, Derek Stanfield. Derek Stanfield is representing us at the Governor's Mansion tonight for the statewide mentoring recognition for National Mentoring Month. So the City of Durham and the Office of the Mayor is there. All right, now I'll pass it over to my colleagues for announcements.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Thanks for those who braved the snow to come join us this evening, and hello to everyone watching at home. It's been an interesting day or two, an interesting week. I'm going to start by just stating that a different international news thing that has been on my mind, which is that there was a ceasefire entered in the conflict between Israel and Gaza. This body joined over 100 other local municipalities and towns to request that ceasefire almost a year ago. The one that was entered into was substantially similar to one that was put forth around that time as well. And I think that we, as a country who spent a lot of money sending weaponry over to Israel, have a lot to answer for in that time. But after the 460 some odd days, we have seen a ceasefire, and I'm grateful that aid has been able to start flowing into Gaza, and it's been really heartbreaking to see just to think about where we were at this time last year, how worried we were about Rafah and the people who had escaped there, and now to see Rafah, which is totally decimated and in complete ruin. Yeah, just something that has been on my mind, and just been thinking about the past year in that regard. The next thing is, the mayor has already sort of alluded to it. It is so very cold outside. I stated this at our work session a week and a half ago, but just as a reminder, it is, if you are unsheltered or you know people that are unsheltered, Durham runs white flag shelters. That means that we have overflow capacity for people who might not otherwise be able to get into the shelters that we do have. That, if you call entry point, you can get in, but it is at Yates Baptist Church, and you actually don't need to sign up. It's first come, first served, 7 to 8:30 p.m. on the nights where it is under 33 degrees. Also, I stated this too at the last work session, but if you are a renter in Durham and you're in the city limits and your landlord is not fixing your heat, you can call Durham One Call or the Neighborhood Improvement Services. They will come out and do an inspection. The board that oversees those inspections will have an emergency meeting, and if they find that you do have emergency need, the city will actually come fix your heat and charge your landlord for that later. So that is an important thing that the city of Durham offers that not other municipalities do offer in emergent situations. And so if you need to take use of that, the number of people I have been hearing from that don't have adequate heating during this time is obscene, truly. So if you need to take use of that, please do so. On that note, I guess I'm probably gonna start talking about this at every meeting. If you've heard from me in the past week, you've probably heard me talk about eviction court. It seems to me that now I'm going to eviction court in the same capacity that I was going before, but the consequences are getting so much more dire in a way that I can't really express if you are not there to witness it. But every week now, it feels like elders in our community especially are facing eviction. They have already maybe gone through all of the other services, and they are at this last line of defense, and they are going to be evicted and they are going to die. And I cannot understate how much those two things are linked. For a lot of people, housing is healthcare and housing is literal life-saving. And it's just happening more and more frequently. And I think we're seeing sort of this national trend of things that feel very authoritarian, very fascist, and there's a lot of question of like, how do we push back against that? And I would argue that the same is true for our society, which is that we have to imagine something different, because if we are looking at this number of evictions constantly, then our system is not working. And we have to be able to imagine something that looks different. And to me, that looks like actual housing for everyone, and I cannot imagine how that would happen unless housing was public. And I know that public housing has its own set of stigmas, and that there was a push for it at some time, and we've sort of walked that back. But truly, housing that is accessible and is managed by the people that live there, that's something that we can imagine and something that we can push for. And I think something that we will have to push for, or we're gonna just allow a lot of our elders and other community members to be on the street and to face terrible consequences. So that's my spiel on that. I also want to just say that yesterday was Martin Luther King Day. I think a lot of us went to various events. I had the privilege of attending the Coalition to End the HIV Epidemic in Durham. Hosted an event yesterday with a series of amazing panelists. I was reminded by elders in the community to think about things not as a shortage of resources, but more as how we're using those resources effectively and efficiently, which again, I think is a statement on kind of what we're gonna need to look at over the next 4 years, and then potentially some. So in keeping with that, and also in keeping with what I've heard from some of my coworkers about wanting to sort of delve more into our budgetary items, I'm going to be requesting at this work session for the following work session to get a presentation on federal and state funding regarding HIV epidemic, specifically HOPWA, and other monies that are coming into the city, to understand better how we're using those and how we maybe could be more effective in that. So that will be a request coming forward on Thursday, colleagues, and I hope you'll join me in getting a presentation on that. Those are my announcements. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Baker.
Thank you, Durham. Good evening. Thank you for those words, Councilmember Cook. Support all of those. I just add that Durham County Library also has warming centers from 9:30 to 8 p.m. at the different public libraries. So be sure to share that. Dr. King said that darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. And indeed, I think yesterday was a day of darkness and a day of light celebrating and love celebrating the legacy of Dr. King, and a day of darkness ushering in sort of the next phase of oligarchy and the billionaire rule in this country. We're not going to wallow in despair, and we're going to rise up through solidarity, through working class solidarity. We're going to do that together, and we are our own greatest strength. And I think there are a lot of good examples out there of people showing that strength. According to a recent article in the Wall Street Journal, 34% of multifamily housing units in the Durham-Chapel Hill metro area are managed by companies that are currently being named in lawsuits for price-fixing schemes. And the new North Carolina Attorney General, Jeff Jackson, he said, we won't stand for landlords and real estate companies making the problem worse to line their own pockets, and is carrying out a lawsuit. And I think that's something that we should feel positive about. Of course, if you were watching the inauguration, Mr. Bezos sat on the front row in the inauguration. And I'm encouraged because just down the road in Garner, RDU1, the Amazon warehouse, is organizing for union elections. They achieved the 30% of signatures, which is incredibly difficult to do, of workers to trigger a union election. And I think that's incredibly encouraging, and wish them the best of luck as they take their votes this February. So I'll just finish here. I shared this quote when I spoke at the celebration of our former mayor, Bill Bell, in the street name change of William V. Bill Bell Way. Something that he said back in 2007 on MLK Day that I find encouraging and that I carry with me every day here in our city. He said, whoever you are, whatever your color, lifestyle, sexual preference, spiritual practice, attitude, or education, you have a home in Durham, a home where we all work together to make our community what we all want it to be, a community that works openly, pinpoints its problems, and finds workable solutions, a community that comes to the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Caballero.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. For those here, I want to thank my colleagues for mentioning some really important things that are happening both internationally, nationally, and locally. I think that many folks can be concerned in what's happened in the last 24 hours on a number of fronts. I just want to lift up what's Western North Carolina is still suffering from the impacts of Hurricane Helene, and we've all been watching the horrific fires in LA and California, both direct outcomes of climate change. I think some folks have been paying attention to some of the executive orders that have just happened in the last 24 hours, and I think we all know that is going to continue. I also want to lift up all the cities that have been named. I'm just going to knock on wood. I'm quite frankly, a rather superstitious person. By the Trump administration for immigration enforcement, Chicago has been cited as one of the top cities, and so I want to send so much love and solidarity to all the immigrant rights work that people have been doing. I want to shout out El Centro en el Pueblo. They've been doing Know Your Rights trainings. Siembra has also starting to do ICE Watch trainings again. Durham played an important role during Trump 1, and community was very, very activated. And so I am calling on Durham residents, especially those with immigration privilege, to please pay attention, look out. It's incredibly important. Unfortunately, for many of us, this is muscle memory. So we are calling back on things we learned before. In some cities, it never went away. There was immigration enforcement. North Carolina got quiet over the last 4 years, but I have a lot of trust in our advocacy organizations. I have a lot of trust in our community to do the right thing, and I think that we're going to have some really hard conversations on this council and in this community on how we protect our immigrant neighbors. I think that many folks were shocked and not unexpected that one of the initial executive orders is challenging birthright citizenship in a way that I think many legal scholars and others were expecting, but maybe not right out the gate. So, as always, estoy pensando en mi comunidad, estoy pensando en la comunidad latina. Siempre están presentes conmigo y vamos a continuar a luchar porque eso es lo que tenemos que hacer. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you. I want to thank my colleagues for stating all of the obvious points, and I won't repeat them as you've done them justice. I just want to add that fresh off of inclusive leadership training and racial equity kind of advocacy work, and yesterday's day hit me with a different spin, just acknowledging, I think, the visiting and working with folks in Montana and seeing how Indigenous and Black folks are working so closely together. I kind of wish we had that kind of organizing in place here, and I look forward to figuring out how to make sure that that does happen. I do appreciate the existing systems, the existing resources, but we're going to need more creativity in what comes next, and so I'm looking forward to digging into what that looks like. I will say that. And so I come in with a great deal of hope for what the next few years look like. And I am excited, really, because I know what the youth are doing and how they're showing up is really, it's amazing, from arts to poems, just their creative thought process. I am really, invigorated by what I've seen, and I'm just excited. So I just will keep it light and brief and say that just getting off the plane and just getting here. So I am just getting on the ground, and I cannot believe it is this cold here. I do want to encourage folks to be very safe on the roads. I know this is not the normal weather here, and folks are likely to just kind of drive as they normally do. Please do not, especially for folks who are walking and biking. It's very dangerous. Please be very careful. And I will say that for those families that are going to be experiencing difficulty in the morning trying to figure out what's going on with schools and not schools and everything, I just want to send a heartwarming regards to you all. Outside of that, I'll pass it on. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rist.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Manager, still seems so new. I'd love to see you there. Colleagues, staff, residents here, and those online, good evening. I hope everyone had an enjoyable MLK Day yesterday. I also want to give a shout out to my colleague next to me, Mayor Pro Tem, who was the keynote speaker at the Ecumenical Prayer Lunch in Raleigh, sponsored by the Triangle MLK Committee. So congratulations on that. It's good to see you over there. These are indeed heavy times, and I appreciate all my colleagues' comments about everything from Gaza, which it's great to see a ceasefire, but it's also the level of destruction is almost unimaginable. The pictures from Los Angeles, the destruction there is also staggering. And as Councilmember Baker said, this notion of oligarchy is a real fear with the new administration. So I just want to appreciate all my colleagues' comments, and I'm glad to be here with you all in this time because it is a heavy time. This may sound unusual, but I do want to say I want to give my regards to the incoming administration. We live in a democracy. I believe in the peaceful transfer of power. And so while I probably disagree with the new administration on virtually every matter of policy, I do want to send my regards to them and their new administration. The last thing, on a lighter note, I will say that thanks again to the mayor for the mayor's Vegan January Challenge. Folks may or may not know this, but I want to thank the city clerk who provides us dinner every Monday before our city council meetings for us and the staff, given that these are long days. The person who provided the meal today or the restaurant was Pure Soul over there on the boulevard, which is a vegan soul restaurant. Great food, so thanks to Pure Soul for providing food for our evening tonight. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'll pass it over to the Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you, colleagues, again. And I associate myself with all of the wonderful comments made tonight. First, I just want to shout out our city workers and municipal workforce who's been busy preparing our city for expected forecasted weather. State workers as well already been treating the roads, and while we're asleep and warm, there are many folk that are out braving the elements on our behalf. So we always want to thank our incredible municipal workforce. I also want to express my well wishes to all of the revelers and celebrators of the dream, the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King on yesterday. Thank you so much to my colleague, Councilmember Riss, for the shout out. I do want to shout out the people of Raleigh who received this Durham elected official wonderfully yesterday over there at the Performing Arts Center in Raleigh for the noonday Martin Luther King ecumenical program. My thanks to the mayor over there and the good folk, the county commissioners, all the folk who attended the event yesterday, and to all of Durham. I know Durham had many, many events going on to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. King, and I want to thank you for your participation and for holding up light during this season. Mr. Mayor, I also want to just shout out our city and thank you. I had the opportunity to, and I know you'll say something about this, to be with the mayor for a couple of days last week in Washington, D.C. for the U.S. Conference of Mayors, which was going on as we approached inauguration weekend. Just very proud to just have reinforced the standing that Durham has amongst our peers around the country. Whether it's HART, whether it's guaranteed income, had an opportunity to caucus with other elected officials who have guaranteed incomes initiatives in their city and hear about the wonderful things that are going on and how the high regard that Durham is held in. So I am even more motivated to codify our guaranteed income initiative here in Durham in perpetuity. And Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you for a lot. I know there's a lot of meetings, a lot of work at those conferences, so splitting up the meetings, but I want to thank you for allowing me to be there and share some of that work. Finally, I do want to say we're going to be all right. We're going to be all right. Durham is Durham, and while we are preparing our city for what is to come, I also want to make sure that we keep our eye on what is already happening with us. I want to lift up the need for a ceasefire in Durham, in our streets, in our public housing complexes, in our downtown. Every night there's gunfire in Durham, and there are young people, babies, our children, living under constant gunfire. While we are focused on many other things, I always want us to be mindful of the pressing issues that we are elected to deal with every day here. And I hope that we will, in 2025, continue to bring all of our vigor, all of our intellect, all of our brilliance, all of our energy to dealing with the scourge that is on our city every day, and that is gunfire that has our children scrambling here in our city. All children deserve to sleep warm in their beds, safe all over the world, and particularly our children. And thankfully, we're in a position as a council, the elected council of this city, to do something in the immediate sense for our children immediately and now. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy holidays to everyone, and good to see you all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, one more thing.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I just, it would be held against me if I didn't just say I want to congratulate the Buckeyes. I know there are many in my family. There are a few in my family who are fans, and I want to say to all those fans out there, you did a great job. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Well, thank you, colleagues, for all of your comments. And yes, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for joining me in D.C. for the U.S. Conference of Mayors. It seems like it's growing and growing and growing. And this year, it seems to have been more than in past time, I guess, last year. But there was no way I could have been in all of the places to represent Durham. I have been selected by my peer mayors across the country to serve on a few boards, mayors and CEOs for housing, representing Wells Fargo as a mayor, in talking about small business and growth and development and economic development in that area. And I'm also on the panel for, it's the P3 panel where mayors and CEOs are talking about just the economy in general. And I'm on a roundtable of mayors around safety in our communities. And when I realized that I'd been selected for those, I knew that I was not going to be able to go to some of the other things I needed to go to. So thank you for joining me. Got a chance to meet with our lobbyist firm, and looking forward to the work that they will be doing for us in Washington. And also, colleagues, you'll see correspondence, if not already, about our legislative. Actually, I've emailed you all about your legislative requests. Please respond if you haven't.
By Friday, right?
Yes. Please respond. We need to get that work underway so that we can be as best prepared. With that being said, talk about a dichotomy that we experienced on Monday. There was an inauguration, and there was a celebration of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his values. And it was a dichotomy of values and beliefs. However, it was all in a democracy. And I have no choice but to be hopeful for this community. And I know while some folks are like doom and gloom because, maybe their preference didn't win, there are some folks that are extremely excited because their person won the national election. Let me straight up remind everybody in this city, this is Durham, and we have one another. And that's what matters most. Now, what will make life miserable is if we tie our shoestrings together and try and sprint here on the ground. If we're tripping over each other, if we are not working together, if we're being unrealistic in how we expect to work together, then yes, life will be miserable. But we owe it to this community. We owe it to this community to resort inward, to resort to one another. The federal government, no matter what team wins, would never dictate the quality of my life in this city. I'm going to rely on you as you should rely on me. Rely on one another. That's how I define community. Now, as Councilmember Riss said, there's a lot of things policy-wise that I don't necessarily agree with the incoming administration, but we have a responsibility to work on behalf of the people of this city to get whatever resources we can get. And I look forward to doing that in the spirit of how Durham operates, which means I'm going to focus heavily here locally. I think we've done our part in making a national splash, but there's a lot more we can do here locally. And I look forward to working with community organizations, working with neighborhoods, working with people here on the ground level. Want to shoot out some dates real quick. January, I think it's the point in time, January 27th. January 27th, we have our pit count, our point in time count, where we walk throughout the entire city with large groups of people, and we count the people that are unsheltered. Now, that number keeps going up. That means that we need a strategy. And so as we are doing this, it doesn't mean that we get really emotional and sensational in that moment and say, oh, we need to do this, we need to do that. That's not sustainable. So I invite the community to come out and witness this, but at the same time, I want everyone to be strategic and be committed to finding a solution. And that means we have to work within the systems and resources that we have to make that a reality. And that means we can't govern based on assumptions. You know, oh, I saw someone sleeping in the woods. Durham is doing nothing for homelessness. That's not accurate. So as we are making sure that we remain sensitive to some of the issues in the city, I also employ that we are being very realistic in how we respond and strategic. I did not know how I was going to feel when I got the news, whenever the news was eventually going to come about a ceasefire. I didn't know how I was going to feel because I remember how I felt during that time here. And that was something that, it was just something that was so unsettling because it was literally lives being taken away while we were watching on TV. But then there were folks that wanted to just look at one side or the other. And we politicized it, even in our own community. And so I just thank God that we have this ceasefire and that hostages are coming home, the killing is stopping. But let me say this, it's stopping there. It's still going on in many places around the world. And we can't cherry pick when we give a damn and when we don't. We just can't. So from Africa to Ukraine, all the way to Durham. If you can't step up and speak out about the loss of life here, I'll just leave it at this. I'm always going to start home first. And I will always join you all over the country and all over the world. But I say that to the folks that are out there that ignore one part and just want to advocate hard on another. The loss of life never should be politicized. I'm so grateful, and I pray to God that the ceasefire sustains. It is much more complex than we could ever even imagine here on the local level, but it never should have started. It never should have been carried out the way it was. There was carpet bombing. There were lives lost on both sides, and there are lives that will never be the same ever again. That's the reality of it. So I'm grateful that this council did a ceasefire state resolution. I'm grateful that I placed a statement out there that talked about the hostages as well, coming home. I'm grateful to the community members that joined me in having a very intimate conversation and being able to take a holistic approach and not both sides, not either or siding it, but actually talked about the holistic picture of it. And I'm grateful for the folks that did say Durham and there, Durham and other places. So when I got the news that there was going to be a ceasefire and it was going to actually hold, it's like one of those uncomfortable, unsettling moments where you want to cry. You want to cry from joy. But you're like, oh my gosh, I'm grateful that happened. Now what more can we do? And how does it never happen again there? And how do we stop it here? So I also, while I was in Washington, I spoke to Mayor Brandon Johnson because I saw the news about an immigration raid happening. And he and I stepped aside, and I won't even speak publicly about what their plan is, but it's unfortunate that cities have to put in a plan to hide people, to hide folks from just living their daily lives. So I will say on the record here, it may sound good to a certain population that there are going to be raids and people are going to be taken up and shipped back to where they come from. let me tell you, it's going to have implications like you've never seen before, and we will fight tooth and nail on it in Durham. It's going to have, I mean, it will hurt our businesses. It's going to tear families away. It's going to take away jobs. Like, we're not going to tolerate that. And I look forward to joining my colleagues, my peers, everyone in this entire city to ensure that we are going to do whatever we can here at the local level. I don't care what it is, and I don't know what it is, but I know we should be prepared, and we're going to be talking about that on a daily basis. So many mayors and I talked about that across the country and how we just plan to prepare. So I just implore everyone to just pay close attention. I don't know what type of mobilization that needs to happen just yet, but we should be prepared for anything. Tomorrow, well, first let me congratulate Burton Elementary for being recognized as a top magnet school of excellence. And really excited for those folks over there. But speaking of Durham Public Schools, they are on a 2-hour delay tomorrow. So Burton, you guys could celebrate having to wake up a little later and going to school a little later tomorrow. Lastly, the State of the City. The State of the City is coming up. It is February 18th at the Carolina Theater. There will be a reception prior to in the Convention Center. It was a huge production last year, and it will actually be bigger this year. It will be bigger this year, and I'm super excited about it. I beg you all to please come out. It's going to be like something you've never seen before. So yeah. So I'll end with this. I did have a conversation with the Mayor's Violent Crime Reduction Roundtable today, and I want the public to know that I'm working really hard to coordinate our systems, from the judges to the magistrate's office, to the DA's office, to the chief of police, the sheriff, just the entire public safety apparatus. I can't, unfortunately, I just can't prioritize anything else over just the safety in this community. I can't. I'll work on other projects, but I will let you know that my number one priority is reflective of the residents of this city's number one priority when they did their survey, and that's public safety. I went to see, and I didn't want any cameras or anything, but I went to see someone this weekend who recently had their child taken away from them through gun violence. And when I pulled into that driveway, there were 2 kids outside playing catch. And when I pulled in, I didn't know where I was going, so I was driving slow, and they froze. And when I turned left to go toward them, they took off running. And I got out. My wife, Zweli, was with me. And I saw the little boys peeking around the building. And I said, hey, you can come out. And they came back out, and they said, oh, what's up? And they started throwing the ball again. I was like, why did you guys run? I said, you'll get killed over here. You got to be careful. That was a 3rd grader and a 5th grader. I played catch with those kids for about 20 minutes. And I learned what schools they went to and just their life a little bit. It is unreal. I then went inside to sit with the mother for about 30 minutes. And she explained to me, how it was with her child getting killed and how he got killed. And when we left, she said, wait a minute, I'll show you how to get out of here, what to look out for. I left her apartment, and we went back to our nice part of town. But that is where she's living, and that is what she lives in on a daily basis, as well as the rest of those residents. So I say to every elected official in the city and every administrator in the city, everyone who does something for this community, whether you are elected or hired, if that is not your number one priority to increase and better the quality of life for the people who live in this city, I don't know what the heck you're doing. And that is my goal for this council, and that is what we talk about, and that is what we're going to do. So, now you know what my focus is. And while we're carrying out this meeting right now, they're probably looking out the window. I hope that stays on everybody's heart that's listening to this meeting. Now, let's get to it. Mr. Manager, on you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. The City Manager's Office has the following priority items this evening. First, for agenda item number 5, Partners for Reentry Opportunities and Workforce Development, the Proud Grant Cooperative Agreement, Eckerd Youth Alternatives, Incorporated, doing business as Eckerd Connects. The additional information requested during the January 9, 2005 City Council work session has been attached. Also, a previous version of this memo listed a Vision Zero update as being attached, but the update will actually be provided at the January 23, 2025 City Council work session. Those are my priority items this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Attorney.
Good evening, Mayor Williams, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, and members of the council. It's good to be with you. The City Attorney's Office has no priority items tonight.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City Clerk's Office also has no priority items tonight.
Thank you. I have a point of, well, I just have a question. I didn't see the link. There was a GBA item for an appointment. How do we address that?
You'll vote tonight at the dais.
Okay, thank you. All right. And guys, you all will hear me repeat myself a bit much tonight. I have some dental work going on, and it's making me, I naturally have a speech impediment, but it is like stronger than ever. So I'm trying to over-enunciate, but the letter S just won't come out sometimes. All right. I'll now read the consent agenda. All right. Item number 2, fiscal year 25 CIP budget ordinance amendments, 2024 general obligation bond referendum. Item number 3, purchase of self-contained breathing apparatus for fire department. And item number 4, fiscal year 2024-2025 agreement to fund education to career initiatives operated by Made in Durham using City of Durham grant funds. Number 6, contract amendment number 1 to BR10C Bridge Professional Services. Number 7, contract ST334C Utility Locate Services 2025. Item number 8, contract SW97 Sidewalk Repairs 2025. Number 9, amendment number 3 to professional services contract SD46D Hillendale Road Bike and Pedestrian Improvements. Number 10, contract with Navient Incorporated to enhance the on-base agenda workflow. Number 11, contract with Applications Software Technology LLC for next generation enterprise resource planning solutions implementation. Number 12, street impact fee eligibility for various transportation projects. Ooh. I don't need to read all those, right? Yeah, I can just read that. Okay, yeah. Number 13, Federal Transit Agency, Section 5310, Grant Project Ordinance. Number 19, Cooperative Group Purchase Contract, Heavy Duty Mobile Air and Light Support Truck. Number 20, an ordinance setting filing fees for candidates to municipal office in the City of Durham. Number 1, under General Business Agenda, Number 1, Durham Planning Commission appointment. We'll address that. Number 5, Partners for Reentry Opportunities and Workforce Development, PROUD, Grant Cooperative Agreement, Eckerd Youth Alternatives, Inc., DBA Eckerd Connects. Also, our public hearings tonight, number 14, zoning map change 3112 South Austin Avenue. Number 14, zoning map change, Brickworks. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, number 15. What did I say? Oh, yeah. Number 15, zoning map change, Brickworks. Number 16, zoning map change, Davis Park West. Number 17, five-year, fiscal year 2025 to 2030, consolidated plan, and fiscal year 2025-2026, annual action plan, public needs hearing. Number 18, public hearing and economic development incentive agreement with Ellis D. Jones and Sons Incorporated. So I have pulled, I have signups for 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. All right. We will go ahead and start at, oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yep. See, Mayor Pro Tem, this is why. Pertaining to our conversation earlier. This is why Madam Attorney is right here. All right, I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
So moved.
Consent agenda.
So moved.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Madam Clerk, please open the vote. Please close the vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, I just got your note. Could you bring that to me, please? All right. So we are starting at number, no, I need to make an adjustment as I stated earlier. What number is it? Thank you. Which is?
Item 17 is the public needs hearing, unless you wanted to do the GBA item first.
No, which one do we need that?
17.
17. All right, colleagues, I'm going to move number 17 first. This is a community development public needs hearing. And then we'll go back and get an order.
Good evening, Mayor Williams, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, City Council members. I'm Reginald J. Johnson, Director of the Community Development Department with the City of Durham. The purpose of this public hearing is to receive citizen comments on community development needs in Durham neighborhoods as it relates to the use and receipt of community development block grant, CDBG, home investment partnership funds, emergency solutions grants, ESG, and housing opportunities for persons with AIDS, HOPWA funds. This public hearing is a requirement of the preparation of the city's draft five-year consolidated plan for the period covering FY25-2030 and the draft FY25-26 annual action plan for submission to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Notice of this meeting was properly advertised in the Herald Sun, K-Pasa newspaper, distributed via the Community Development Department's general listserv, as well as posted on the Community Development Department's webpage and the City of Durham's webpage. There's a recipient of CDBG, home, ESG, and HOPWA funds. The city is required to hold at least 2 public hearings prior to the submission of these plans. The first meeting must be held early in the developmental stage. The department anticipates a second public hearing to be held in May or June of 2025. In addition, the city is required to publish a copy of its draft consolidated plan and draft annual action plan for citizen comments for at least 30 days prior to its submission. The city's draft plan must be submitted to HUD by July 25th, 2025, or as applicable. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, has not yet notified the city of entitlement amounts for FY25-26. For planning purposes, the city expects to receive approximately $2,002,000 in CDBG funds, $1,040,000 in home consortium funds, $179,000 in ESG funds, and $1,130,000 in HOPWA funds. In closing, a summary of the comments of this public hearing and written comments will be received, as well as written comments will be received from citizens during the development of the consolidated plan and the Agnew action plan, and they will be incorporated into both of the final drafts. That concludes my introductory statements. Thank you.
Thank you. You have heard the report from staff. I will now declare this public hearing to be open and will first entertain questions and comments from the council. All right, I'll now entertain comments. And I have one sign up for this item, and it is virtual. Do we have Ms. Cunningham online?
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, I can hear you. You have 3 minutes. Welcome.
All right. Thank you so much. Good evening, City Council.
Could you say your name for the record, please?
Yes. My name is Dr. Haley Cunningham.
Doctor. All right. Dr. Haley Cunningham, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah. All right. Good evening. Again, my name is Dr. Cunningham. I specialize in treating and preventing HIV, and many of my patients struggle to take their medications or come to clinic because of housing insecurity, homelessness, or lack of transportation. Despite filling out paperwork requesting housing assistance through HOPWA, I've yet to see any of my patients receive housing assistance. I'm here today virtually to speak on behalf of the Coalition to End the HIV Epidemic in Durham. Our coalition was created to eliminate homelessness among those living with HIV. We seek to unite and strengthen local HIV support organizations by securing equitable funding and building capacity with a focused commitment to Black and Latino communities. We hosted an event at First Presbyterian Church yesterday following the MLK March and service, and we greatly appreciate Chelsea Cook's presence and support. Being homeless at the time of HIV diagnosis is associated with a 27-fold higher risk of death compared to those with stable housing. And the CDC has definitively stated that stable housing is essential to ending the HIV epidemic. And yet, in the beautiful, progressive city of Durham, people are living on the streets and dying of AIDS. The number is uncertain because no one is counting or recording those who have HIV, but every single one of these people do count. The current system's not working. DSS does not have the capacity or expertise to manage HOPWA funds alone, and Central Piedmont Community Action collapsed under its leadership's fraud convictions. We have only 45 HOPWA vouchers to serve Durham and surrounding counties, and yet only 20 have been utilized. And we understand that it's difficult to find landlords who will accept these vouchers, but that should be a signal that it's time to change strategies. Durham residents are in need of support, and local organizations like ACRA Care, the Community Health Coalition, El Centro, and more are trying their best, but with limited funds and without a seat at the table. Please support and partner with our coalition to end the HIV epidemic in Durham, and include us in drafting the 5-year consolidated plan and the fiscal year 2025-2026 annual action plan. Given the expected receipt of $1.1 million in HOPWA funds this year, and almost $1.4 million of funding remaining unused since 2020, the coalition could use this $2.5 million to create a new system of care that will allow existing organizations to better coordinate services and support those living with HIV. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Those are all of the speakers that I have signed up. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this matter? All right, so let the record reflect that no one else has requested to speak on this item. I now declare the public hearing to be closed and the matter back before the council. Council, are there any comments? All right. And that was for information purposes, correct? That's the first of two, right?
No, there is a motion here.
Oh. One moment.
And to conduct a public hearing, we also ask that you receive the comments.
Okay, so we don't necessarily have to take action on it, but, well, we took the action that was needed. We don't have to take legislative action.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, I will now go back up to our GBI items. Where are your notes? Number 1, right? All right. This is probably the most bouncing around agenda that we've had. Okay, so back before us is our general business agenda items, and number 1 here is the Durham Planning Commission appointment.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
All right. So how are we voting on this tonight?
Mr. Mayor, at the work session, I can give you the breakdown of what the nominations were. There was no majority. Ramsey Ritchie received 1 vote, Michael J. Young, 1 vote, Caitlin Kempsey, 2 votes, and Carrie Piontek, 2 votes, and then I did not have Councilmember Freeman's vote.
Okay, so how would you like us to vote? Would you like us to call out names or?
That would be a good idea.
Okay, all right.
I would have submitted, I couldn't submit, the form wouldn't go through, but it was for Caitlin Kempsey.
Okay, that gives Caitlin Kempsey 3 votes, and the next behind that are each 1 vote. So if somebody would like to shift their vote to Caitlin
Change
Kempsey.
mine to Corey Piontek?
Piontek?
Piontek.
Give Corey 2, Caitlin 3, and Ramsey Ritchie 1.
Okay.
And can I change mine as well? Yeah, because the person I voted for is no longer eligible, I think is on DOS, so I'd like to change mine also for Corey Piontek.
So that's 1, 2.
Okay, then Corey has received majority with Caballero, Middleton, Williams, and Rist.
Okay.
Is that your wish? Okay.
We need to take a vote.
Did you? Okay.
You need to vote tonight.
Move to fill the vacancy.
Second.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. Madam Clerk, go ahead and please open the vote. All right, please close it.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Thank you. All right. The next one is item number 5, Partners for Reentry Opportunities and Workforce Development, PROUD Grant Cooperative Agreement, Eckerd Youth Alternatives Incorporated, DBA Eckerd Connects. This item was moved to GBA, and we have our OEWD, Office of Economic and Workforce Development staff here. All right.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, and Mr. City Manager. This is my first time before you this year, so Happy New Year to you all. Councilmember Rist, you made the request, and we're here to answer any questions you may have. My name is Adria Graham-Scott with the Durham Workforce Development Board.
Yes, thanks, Ms. Graham-Scott. Yeah, so I had some questions at the work session. We spoke before the session about additional information in the packet. You had sent kindly the full contract that we have executed with Eckerd Solutions, and then we had some further conversation even today. I think my question was mainly about the memo to the council referred to that evaluation that was done to suggest that we should approve the second year of the 3-year contract. And so our conversation today, I thought, was for me very eye-opening. And I wonder if were you able to get the slide? Could you?
Unfortunately, no, but we do have the information, and we're prepared to provide that verbally.
If you could share because I guess I just want to say, like, this work of providing workforce training to folks who are coming back to Durham after serving time is absolutely critical work, as you all know. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. So I'm really, I don't want to speak for my colleagues in the council, but we are definitely interested in the success of this work to provide critical workforce training skills to folks that otherwise are going to have a very, or even with, just we'll have a tough time finding a job after serving time, right? So this is such critical stuff. So please share that information so my colleagues and the public have a sense of what we're doing now to really reach those goals of, I think, 90 people that we wanted to reach with employment services and workforce training with the PROUD grant.
Thank you, sir. As a brief background, just to recount, the PROUD program is a federal partnership, a unique federal partnership, in fact, between the Department of Labor and the Department of Justice. And it's a national program that originally was awarded to 7 states. North Carolina was awarded a grant here as a result of a partnership between 3 workforce boards: Durham Workforce Development Board, Capital Area, and CARTAR Workforce Development Board. Those 3 boards act in collaboration to put an RFP out and secure a contractor to actually provide the services for the program. And that is the contract with that service provider, Eckerd Connects, is the discussion item we're talking about today. I'd like to turn it over to my staff member, Michael London, who's our program manager for the PROUD program, to provide those statistics.
Hi, and good evening, board. I am Michael London, the local program manager for the Durham program, which Adria was speaking to. So currently we're working with enhancing the program. We have like 68 guys that are currently enrolled and participating in the forklift certification, along with 15 guys that are going with the ServSafe certification that are coming back to our community. So the efforts in order to reach that 90 is definitely moving in the positive direction.
I'm sorry, and you said that the total number we're serving is how many currently?
The total number we're serving here in the Durham area is 18.
18, okay, yeah.
Yes.
Right. So, and you said it's 58 across the 3 workforce.
No, across the 3 workforces, it's like 190.
Okay, and so our goal is 90, so we've got 18 of those 90. And so is your sense that we'll be, well, actually, if you could also go back, or Mrs. Graham-Scott, talk about the challenge. It sounds like there's the challenge in Durham of knowing actually who is coming back to Durham, given that we don't have, as you were saying today, that we don't have a halfway house. So it sounds like data is not always clear to you all about who is actually coming back and would be in need of those services, right? So it sounds like there may be an information gap or a lack of data on your part to know how many folks are even in this sort of pipeline to serve, correct?
The 90 individuals that were added in our original proposal was an estimate based on...
The 90, right, yeah.
That figure was derived based on our overall assessment over years of looking at our returning individuals. Unfortunately, the PROUD grant only covers those individuals exiting from our federal facility, which is the Butner facility. So that significantly limits the number of individuals that would be approved to participate in this program. So what we've done is we've looked at how we can build partnerships across other areas. As the program has been moving forward in these last 18 months or so, we've looked at various workarounds. Durham does not have currently a federal halfway home, and so we don't have individuals who are coming into halfway houses being directly released to Durham. They're either going to our Raleigh facility or to Greensboro. So since the program has initiated, we've developed a partnership with our Greensboro partners so that those individuals who enter into the halfway home there will be able to, those who have a desire to come back to Durham, we can start providing services to them there. And that's included in our 18 number service. It's very difficult to make a sure estimate as to how many individuals will serve, but over the course of the next 3 years, and we are now currently applying for an extension for an additional 3 years, we feel certain we'll be able to meet that 90 goal.
That's great. I really appreciate that. I mean, this is, as I said, this is absolutely critical work. So I appreciate your doing the hard work of given those limitations in some of the data and information. Really critical work. I appreciate that you're doing that. And I think having this information is really incredibly valuable to me, and I hope the rest of the council. The initial packet didn't have nearly this kind of data in terms of like numbers of people. And I look forward also to getting outcome data, how many actually get employed, how long they're employed, what those wages are. So that's information I hope we get in the future from you all. But this is great stuff, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you all so much.
Move number 5 is published.
Can I get a second? Thank you. Madam Clerk, please open the vote. Please close the vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Number 14. All right, the next item on our agenda is number 14, zoning map change 3112 South Austin Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the Council. Before I begin, staff would like to state for the record that all Planning Department hearing items have been advertised and noticed in accordance with state and local law, and affidavits of all notices are on file in the Planning Department. A request for a zoning map change has been received by Mike Klein of MRK Planning Consulting, LLC, for one parcel of land totaling 0.75 acres and located at 3112 South Austin Avenue. The current zoning is office and institutional and residential rural. The applicant proposes to change this designation to office and institutional with a textual development plan. The applicant is proposing to rezone the properties to allow up to 7 townhouse and/or detached row house dwelling units. The properties are currently designated established residential on the place type map. The proposed office and institutional zoning is generally consistent with the designated place type due to the restriction to residential uses. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval at its November 12th, 2024 meeting. Thank you. Staff and the applicant are available to answer any questions.
Thank you. You've heard the staff report. Council, any questions, comments? Councilmember Cook.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Just a couple of questions. I'm curious as to why this was the designation that was chosen. I understand that it's now with the textual development plan, but we still are in office and institutional to build solely residential. Can you just speak to why that was the?
I can't speak for the applicant as to why they chose that particular zoning designation, but the UDO does allow for townhouse and detached row house units to be built in office and institutional.
Okay.
So it is an option for them to go this direction.
Okay, but there wasn't a conversation with staff about that?
No, not in, I mean, we had a pre-submittal at the very beginning of the process with the applicant, and he expressed that this is the direction that he wanted to go, likely because the parcels to the south are also zoned office and institutional, so it would be consistent with the adjacent properties.
Okay, and then for, I think it was 7 townhouses and/or detached row house units, and we estimate 0 children. Why is that?
Because the new formula that we've gotten from DPS that we started using in, I think, October, has greatly decreased the expected number of students generated, particularly by townhouses. The generation rates that we've seen historically from townhouses are just very small, and 7 is not enough to get to 1 expected student.
I feel like I've asked you that every time because it sounds unreasonable to me, I guess, when I'm thinking about particularly like more what we talk about as potentially more affordable, that younger families might move into those. But can you remind me what the minimum number is before we get to 1 student?
I want to say it's probably around 9, 10, but I don't remember off the top of my head what that ratio is.
Okay, thank you. I'm probably going to keep asking you that question.
Feel free, and just as a reminder, these are numbers that are coming from DPS. They are their historical trend for the last few years, and they are much more reliable than what we were depending upon before.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. So at this time, I'll declare this public hearing open. And first, we have the applicant here. Welcome. How much time do you think you need?
I don't think I need much time at all.
All right, 5 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Mike Klein from MRK Planning Consulting, 7204 Stonecliff Drive, Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm here tonight with the property owner, Olumide Oluramad, who is joining us virtually. The only thing I have to add to Andrew's introduction is with the first committed element, the textual development plan, we started out with a general rezoning, and after, at some point during review by planning staff, after the pre-sub meeting, we were led toward preferring a development plan or converting from general rezoning to development plan. And as far as I understand, that was to just restrict the site to residential versus residential plus other uses that are allowed for office institutional zoning. Just real quickly, the other conditions, 2 and 3, the exclusive northbound left turn lane on South Austin at the site access point, that came from NCDOT. And then the 10-foot concrete shared path for the full frontage of the site along the west side of South Austin to accommodate bicycles and pedestrians, that came from transportation. And then Planning Commission asked for the final condition for the 30-foot tree preservation buffer at the rear, which we were amenable to because we wanted a vegetative buffer against the rail corridor anyway. Beyond that, there's a comment in the Planning Commission notes about use of 3116 and 3118 South Austin, where we are also proposing up to 7 townhouse or detached row house units on those properties. That's all I have for presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Well, you're the only speaker that I had for that one. So I will declare this, well, let me ask council, are there any questions? Well, let me declare the public hearing closed and back before the council. All right, colleagues, any questions? Go ahead.
Good evening. I just want to pose the same question that I had just asked Aaron to you, which is why, in knowing that you wanted to do a residential, just curious about why the office and institutional was the one that you chose.
Oh, I'm sorry. The site is split zoned. Office, institutional, rural, residential. So as the housing type that we're proposing for the site is an allowed use in office institutional, our choice was to extend office institutional for the entirety of the site.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adopt an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance by taking property out of office and institutional and residential rural and establishing the same as office and institutional with the textual development plan.
Moved as read.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Mayor, Madam Clerk, please open the vote. Please close the vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. And, well, one more. And I'll also entertain a motion to adopt a consistency statement as required by the North Carolina General Statute, Section 160D-605.
Move to adopt consistency.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Madam Clerk, please open the vote. Please close the vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. All right, we're now on item number 15.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A request for a zoning map change has been received from Dan Jewell of Thomas and Hutton for 6 parcels of land totaling 95.48 acres and generally located in an area bounded by Hoover Road and Angier Avenue to the west, Ash Street to the north, U.S. Highway 70 I-85 to the east, and East End Avenue to the south. The current zoning is industrial, industrial light, and residential urban 5. The applicant proposes to change this designation to Planned Development Residential 19.811. The applicant is proposing to rezone the properties to allow up to 1,880 residential units and up to 49,500 square feet of non-residential development. The properties are currently designated mixed-use neighborhood on the place type map. The proposed PDR 19.811 zoning is consistent with the designated place type due to the inclusion of non-residential uses. The Planning Commission recommended approval by a vote of 9-1 at its November 12th, 2024 meeting. Staff and the applicant are available for any questions.
Thank you. You've heard the staff report. Are there any technical questions or comments to staff? All right. At this time, I'll now declare the public hearing open. Mr. Ghosh, how much time do you think you need?
Maybe 10 minutes.
All right, please place 12 minutes on the clock.
Thank you, Mr. Kane, for your presentation. Good evening, Mayor Williams, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, and members of the City Council. I am Neil Ghosh, an attorney with the Morningstar Law Group at 700 West Main Street here in Durham. And I'm representing the developer for this request. I believe both Sarah Bexendale and Harrison Tucker from Spacecraft City are here with me tonight, as well as Dan Jewell from Thomas and Hutton. I had my first conversation with these folks about this project almost exactly 2 years ago today. It's hard to believe that we are here tonight with the number of changes we've made to the plans, but I have to give these folks credit for taking time to understand Durham and shape their project accordingly. Generally speaking, Spacecraft is active in urban cores, building dense, mixed-use buildings. A 95-acre tract in a suburban setting, therefore, is quite a different can of worms. But their urban development background influences their approach to this property, and that comes through in the development plan. For starters, the fact that this site is along an active bus route was of utmost importance to them. Go Durham Route 12 with service to Briar Creek runs right by this site. It has regular service Monday through Saturday, and it also has service on Sundays and holidays. And that was pretty critical to these folks in choosing this site. Additionally, the C.R. Wood Park across the street from the site was very important to them. In some sense, this site has a lot going for it. On the other hand, no site is without challenges, and this site is no exception. The site used to be an active brick-making operation, Board and Brick, if you're familiar. I'm not sure when they stopped operating on this site, but they have owned it ever since. Because of their brick pit operation and more, the site has a fair amount of streams, ponds, wetlands, and other environmental features. It also is located next to an active railroad track, which presents its own challenges. And there is, of course, the existing community all around, whether that's the established homes on East End or the recycling and transfer station to our north. So they've taken all that into consideration. The first thing to note about their development is their decision to cluster development on a portion of the site. We've committed to a maximum impervious of 24%. So out of 95-ish acres, that's about 23 acres of impervious. Again, this goes back to their urban development background. They're trying to build a denser project within the areas they are developing, and graphically you can see on the development plan that much of the northern section of the property is outside of the building and parking envelope. So that's one thing they've done. Secondly, they're trying to develop densely and with a mix of uses. The project would allow up to 1,880 units and up to 49,500 square feet of non-residential square footage. Again, that would be on just about 23 acres of the overall 95-acre tract. I think ideally they would like for all the units to be apartments, but there are likely some developable areas that are more suitable for townhome-style units. They also envision some vertically integrated mixed-use buildings with retail or commercial on the bottom and residential over top. And the development plan allows for building heights of up to 100 feet, so we're talking about building up rather than out. Another thing they've done is focus on walkability. You can see that the building and parking envelope surrounds the riparian feature in the southern portion of the property. The idea here is to make the riparian feature an amenity of the development. Likely, the mixed-use buildings and much of the commercial square footage is going to be situated towards Angier Avenue, but many of the residential buildings will be situated around the stream. The development plan commits to having at least 5,000 linear feet of walking trails throughout this site. We envision these trails focusing on the stream with units facing the stream or the walking path. This will be set up as a very urban environment. And then, of course, we don't want to overlook the affordable housing commitment. This is a larger project, which is committed to 5% of the apartment units being affordable at the 60% AMI level for a period of 30 years without any subsidy. At full build-out, that could be about 90 units. And let's be clear about what that means. If this project is brought to full fruition, that's about 90 affordable units located next to a transit line in a mixed-use community with walking trails adjacent to a public park and only a stone's throw away from the industrial park that the council approved at the Palmer Edge location. I mean, this is kind of a poster child development story, reimagining a defunct industrial site as a mixed-use, walkable, mixed-income community. I recognize that this is not a perfect development, but it's pretty darn close. Before I close, I do want to acknowledge some of the feedback that we've seen. There's no getting around it. Development on this site is going to impact wetlands. It's going to cross the stream. But keep in mind that this property is already within the city limits, and it is zoned, a majority of it is zoned industrially. So by right, the UDO already allows for the types of impacts we're showing on the development plan, and even for much more intense uses on the site. I suppose if you dream of the site remaining a defunct brick pit site forever, I could understand the critique, but the reality is that any development here is going to have similar impacts or possibly even worse. In fact, the city's own comprehensive transportation plan calls for Carr Road to be extended through the site, crossing the stream and impacting wetlands. Additionally, I want to note that the staff report is correct that we have committed only to 7% tree cover, which is the minimum amount required. Technically, it's actually slightly more than is required, but that's beside the point. I guess the point is there's going to be much more than 7% tree cover on the site, as pointed out correctly by Planning Commissioner Kopak. The site has riparian features within which the trees are required to be preserved. That is likely already in excess of 7%. Moreover, our building and parking envelope excludes far more than 7% of the site. We just aren't taking credit for those trees. The staff report materials suggest that no green building techniques are included in this development. So I do want to correct the record on that because the development plan already commits to providing EV charging stations. It also commits to clustering development on a small portion of the site. But I want to go ahead and make a new commitment related to our apartment and mixed-use buildings. Those buildings will be designed to meet at a minimum, the National Green Building Standards for bronze or higher. And we're happy to make that commitment tonight to further strengthen an already strong project. I look forward to getting your feedback tonight. Hopefully we can do one better than we did at the Planning Commission, which voted 9-1 to recommend approval of this project. Our team is available to answer any questions you have, and thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh. You are the only speaker, so at this time, yeah.
This is formerly a heavy industrial site, right?
What's your name? Say your name, please.
Ian Kipp, 100 West Markham Avenue.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
I own property just up the way on East End Avenue, a small vacant lot. And I've walked down the foot of Rowena Avenue. And when you get to the quarry, I don't know if it's a quarry officially, but it's the water where all the water runs down to, it's a dead pool. Nothing lives in it. So I have a serious concern here. I looked at the aerials briefly. The 1983 aerial map says this is the Barrow Pit, and it's a complete extraction pit. So I did not participate in the planning discussion, but I have concerns, and I think you should too, about this site. And I'm all for development, I'm all for clustering development, I'm all for responsible development, but this is a challenge. And at very least, a phase 1 and phase 2 should be done on this pit. The pit is up, and then the quarry is downhill. So I have serious concerns. and you should too. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to respond to that, Mr. Ghosh?
Yeah, absolutely. Just for what's we have done a phase 1 environmental analysis, which did not indicate any specific concerns, so we did not do a phase 2 because the phase 1 didn't call for it. So we're very aware of the pond the borrow pit has created, and that features prominently in our decisions on how to develop the site. So we're aware of it, and we have studied it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I will now declare this public hearing closed and back before the council. Colleagues.
Thank you. Oh, did you want to follow up on that?
What the borrow pits, if you could just say what the borrow pits actually are. I don't think everyone understands.
Well, my understanding is that the borrow pits were areas on the property that were used for earthen material for bricks whenever the brick operation was going on. And again, I don't recall when the last time that site was used for that purpose, but that's what it was last used for and has not been used in many years. I don't know how long for anything. It's just been the old board and brick site.
And just to be specific, are there hollow areas in the pit? Like, did the pits create hollow areas that would create some issue around earth moving as you're?
Well, in this case, it is one big borrow pit that has since filled with water and turned into a pond. So it's not itself hollow, but it was a dug out area of the property, if that makes sense. So it's not necessarily naturally occurring, if that makes sense.
Right, Councilmember Cook.
Good evening. I was hoping that you could talk a little bit more about the affordable housing commitment. I heard this could be 90 units, which sounds great. I'm just a little bit confused because my understanding is that it is only 5% of the apartments. And what I'm seeing is that we're looking at a minimum of 100 townhouses and 100 apartments. I'm just hoping you could tell me a little bit more about how you got to this potential idea of 90 when the minimums are quite small of apartments. Like, we could have more townhouses, for example, than apartments.
You could. So the way this, we've requested a PDR zoning here, and we have a maximum of 1,880 units. Under the UDO, at full build out, the site plan is going to have to show at least 80% of those units. So practically speaking, we can't do 100% townhome. We can't do 100 apartments and then do the rest as townhomes. We'll never hit the density number that would be required for our zoning. The condition which says that there will be a minimum of 100 townhomes and a minimum of 100 apartments is only meant to illustrate that there will be at least 2 unit types, right? But the vast majority of the units are going to be apartments. And frankly, these folks would rather build them all as apartments. It's just that the way the site lays out, they're just going to be locations where a townhome makes more sense developmentally than trying to put like an apartment pad on an area that's, maybe between the project boundary buffer and the riparian buffer, because that's where a lot of the building is ultimately going to happen, is in that area.
Thank you. I might come back for those. My questions for now.
Any other questions or comments? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, colleagues. Thank you for being with us tonight. A lot going on in this project. Big piece of land. I was reading with interest the Planning Commission comments. 9-1, a lot of yeses, but the yeses contain a lot of commentary. I'm pleased that it's within our urban footprint. This is a significant piece of land within our urban footprint, and I've said time and time again, if we're going to keep fidelity with the urban growth boundary, we're going to have to make some tough decisions about development within our urban footprint. It seems to me that with this many living units, and I think I saw just south of 50,000 square feet of non-residential development, potentially walkable community, depending upon what goes in that 50,000 square feet. So I want you to talk to me a little bit about the non-resident, what the anticipation is of the, I know you probably don't have lessees now, but the anticipated use of the 49,500 square feet. And one of the commissioner comments, I think there was a commitment made to have another community engagement meeting prior to coming before this council. So talk to me a little bit about the non-residential square footage usage, what the vision is on that, and how the community engagement went as well.
Sure. So I think with the non-residential square footage, well, let me say a couple things. I think a lot of it is anticipated to be within a mixed-use building. So, retail, commercial on the bottom with units on top, and that'll likely be out towards the Anger Avenue entrance because, frankly, that's where the most cars are likely going to pass by. So it has the highest visibility. There is potential for there to be some small standalone commercial buildings. But I think the majority of the commercial square footage will end up in kind of a mixed-use building. As far as the types of uses, I think it would be easier for me to tell you what won't be there. We have eliminated anything with the drive-through facility. Now, I think the way we're seeing retail and commercial work right now, what happens is a lot of the spaces are smaller than they used to be. So it seems unlikely that there would be something, let's say like a grocery store, not that that's prohibited, but it seems unlikely that a grocery store would be kind of an end user here because they take up a lot of space as a standalone. But in a mixed use building, you're more likely to have maybe one large restaurant, but a few kind of smaller, it might be some sort of fitness studio, some sort of specialty food place like a donut shop or something like that in smaller spaces, and maybe a large restaurant as well. That seems to be kind of more likely as what will go there. But as you mentioned, we don't have the entitlement. We haven't gone to market, so we don't have any end user signed up or necessarily even in mind, other than what I've already explained is what we don't have in mind is anything that's going to be like specifically auto-oriented with a drive-through, nothing like that. In fact, drive-throughs are prohibited by the zoning, if that helps. And then to speak to the community engagement. So first of all, the concern was brought up at the Planning Commission, and so I'd been working on this project primarily from our office, but at the Planning Commission, my partner Patrick Biker was there, and he may not have had all of the information as it relates to the various meetings that we have had, but it's worth pointing out that in the 2 required neighborhood meetings, I think across those 2, we had about 30 people attend, which, take that for what it's worth, but, it's not that nobody came, which I've had several, projects that I thought, well, more people should have come. There were a fair amount of people that came to this meeting. Outside of that, throughout this 2-year process, or I should say at least since the first neighborhood meeting, I've personally had folks call me about this project from the community after hearing about it. Maybe they had missed the meeting. In fact, I wouldn't know how many to tell you called, but more than any other project that I've seen. Not that the phone was ringing every day with someone, but I got a number of phone calls about this project. At the Planning Commission meeting, specifically what was raised is that this site is in close proximity to the Hoover Road Apartments, DHA community, and that it would be wise for us to try to do some more specific engagement with that community. And we took that to heart. So we actually did host an in-person meeting. And sadly, no one from that community came, although some people did come to the meeting. No one from that community came. Now, the good part, though, is we actually, Patrick and I, went to that community door to door and handed out flyers for that meeting. And we had the opportunity to speak with residents in that community about the project at that time. So we did conduct additional engagement. And I frankly, I thought that the engagement we had done before the Planning Commission was as well attended or better attended than most other projects that I've worked on.
Thank you for that. I think the Planning Commission got this one right. The IL, the Industrial Light and the Residential Urban 5 designation, this is me, and I'm in this area all the time. I prefer to see more residential rather than industrial presence in that, precisely given its proximity to Hoover Road Apartments. So I'll be supporting this project. I think the Planning Commission got it right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Baker, you're welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for those comments and questions, colleagues. I just want to stress this is a very, very large site. Of course, it's infill, and increasingly as we develop out, our infill sites are going to be more and more challenging, like this one, former industrial in nature. I think that this site, this proposal is on the better side of what we typically see. I think it is more closely aligned with the comprehensive plan than what we typically see from large proposals. I want to stress to my colleagues, this is so large, I don't want folks to feel rushed. Get your questions asked. This is a big rezoning case. So make sure that you're very comfortable with it. There are challenges to this site, but I want to highlight the location of the site is a benefit to rezoning it for new development. That's one benefit. You're proposing a variety of uses, which is exactly what the comprehensive plan calls for in this area. That's a good thing. The density, I think, meets what we were looking for in the comprehensive plan. That's another good thing. Clustering, which you've spoken about and which we can see in the proposal, is a good thing. The 60% AMI affordable housing, that's a great thing. Trails, and now this new commitment to the bronze equivalent or higher for green building. These are all very, very good things. We're in the middle of rewriting our Unified Development Ordinance right now. I think everybody knows. The new ordinance, from what I've been seeing and what I anticipate and hope will come out of it, will set aside some of the design and building orientation and site design anxieties that sometimes I have on these cases, because our current UDO does not address those to the extent that they should, in order to ensure that they are consistent with what is being called for in the comprehensive plan. This one specifically is in the mixed use neighborhood place type category, which, if folks are interested, you can open it up in the comprehensive plan. The characteristics are on page 190. And so, Mr. Ghosh, I would feel, I think what we're seeing here is much closer to consistency with the comprehensive plan than what we typically see. I would love to see more commitments that get the design right, that ensure that the design and the building orientation, site design, is going in the right direction. I hear you saying that it is, and also this is a rezoning case, not a project approval. This is a rezoning case. And so there are certain things that, again, one day will be in the new UDO that are not currently there, that I would like to see. Commitments to transit-oriented and pedestrian-oriented development. I think that can look different ways, that can look differently. We could look at some of the design districts that we already have, the compact design, the compact suburban design. There are good provisions in there that could be made as commitments voluntarily. Or there could be more general commitments. We could say commercial will be pedestrian-oriented and oriented toward public sidewalks. Commitments to rear alleys, front porches, backyards, accessory dwelling units, or housing types that would have that space in the backyard and that alley access that would make ADUs actually possible, whether you were the ones to develop those or not. So that's where I'm hung up here is I do believe that this is more consistent with the comprehensive plan than what we typically see. It is so close, and that design piece, when we talk about walkability, the density, diversity, and design, we have here the density and we have the diversity of uses, which again, we don't always see as proposed. And then it's that design piece that I want it to get to be right, because this is such a large, transformative site. This development will be transformative in that area. It's a huge opportunity. And so I want us to be up here, I want us to be comfortable and careful in our deliberation and in our questioning, because this is going to have long-term impacts for that entire part of our city. So, Mr. Ghosh, if you have any responses to that, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your feedback on that. And, I think the challenge with this is twofold. Number one is I think they have an idea of what they'd like to build, but it hasn't been designed yet, right? So some of the concepts you're talking about generally are things that they want to incorporate. But the site is, well, it's a suburban site, and we also know that, when they get to an engineering stage and they're doing site planning, there are some challenging areas that we don't know exactly quite how it's going to work out. But generally speaking, they kind of have like a mid-rise portion of the project, and then they have the townhome portion of the project. And they want to group the mid-rise portion of the project to allow the residences and retail to have direct street and pedestrian access. And I want to emphasize the word want, because how the street exactly lays out, where the parking exactly, that hasn't been quite designed. Their goal is to not have any of the parking garages front the street, right? And for it to be very much like an urban-oriented design. But I think the challenge is it's not an urban area. And there are environmental features that they're trying to deal with at the same time. In the townhome portion, where possible, they want to orient garages to alleys or secondary streets. In their minds, it's most effective when the main entrances to the townhomes are not on the garage side, but instead they face each other or face a greenway or something like that. That's what they're after. But to reduce that down to a commitment, I think is difficult, because it's like, I don't know how to tell you what percentage of units are going to meet this desire. And I don't want to give you the impression that it's going to be 100% of the units, because we actually don't think it will be 100% of the units that are going to, meet all of those standards. But that's exactly what they're trying to build, to the best of their abilities and to the contours of the site. So I think that's kind of the challenge with that. But I hear what you're saying, and obviously they've done some. They put some thought into this, and they have commitments on the development plan that are related to design aspects that I think don't speak directly to those items, but the walking trails, the percentage of impervious, those things all are, speak to the type of design that they're going for. This is not going to be, this is a 95-acre site, but this isn't 95 acres of development.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Ghosh. My colleagues have mentioned, I think this is an exciting redevelopment project for all the reasons we talked about: the affordability, the infill, access to transit, the mix of uses, the pathways, as you mentioned. So exciting stuff. I did want to ask about, because I think you mentioned this in terms of challenges. So I know there's that one industrial site that still fronts on Hoover, right? That's going to be in the kind of a middle, right? So,
sure.
How do you and the team address that from a design, but also kind of a building perspective? What do you do with that?
Yeah, I mean, so that it's a transfer station, if you're not familiar with it, and that site, well, we abut it directly. So that operation does not currently use all of the acreage of its parcel. So there are portions that abut us that are not in use on that site. if I understand correctly, that site was recently sold to the current owner. We had conversations with the previous owner 2 years ago or whatever. And we made it clear that they're interested in acquiring the portion of that site that hasn't been used. Those discussions obviously, didn't come to fruition, and now there's a new owner of that site who we've not had any conversation with. We are assuming that over time, we are hoping that over time that operation will cease, or at least they will sell the portion that they're not using and open it up for a development that's kind of more in line with what we're doing. We hope. We are assuming, though, and planning for the future that operation never ceases to exist and, in fact, expands to its limits on that site. So we're going to have the project boundary buffer there, and that's, we're going to build it up to try to reduce the impacts of both the visibility to and, I guess I would say sound, to the extent there is sound, from that location. That's the idea here. The UDO, because that site's already zoned industrial, the UDO already requires the most robust buffer in that location. So, that's really kind of the plan there. But the space on our side is, that's how you make a dense development, is you use the space that's available, right? So, there's going to be development near there, but we're going to have to build it up, berm it up, that type of thing to create an effective barrier there.
Great, appreciate that. And also, could you tell me the price point on the market rate apartments? What's the range there?
I actually don't know if you guys have an idea on the market rate for the apartments. But they are market rate, just to be clear. It's not coming out the ground yet, so it's hard to say. But if they were built today, it would be what the market rate is today.
No, I got you.
That's kind of the idea.
Well, thanks. I think it's exciting. I'll be supporting this project. Thank you.
Councilmember Caballero.
Thank you. Good evening. I look forward to supporting this project. Just out of curiosity, I looked up some pictures from
spacecraft.
Okay, so I was like, that sounds very, but I just wanted to make sure I looked up the right projects. I'm assuming you have an architect on your team, right? So I feel like design is that field. So, and generally I hope we don't, I think it's Morrisville that at some point got so picky within their UDO that they ended up with you could only use 4 facades on the front of their housing. I just broadly want to, I know these random details. Welcome to my brain. And so in general, I don't actually want to go in that direction. I want folks to design and the professionals who went to school to do it, to do their jobs. And I think we've gotten overly fussy on how we do that. And the cities that we point to globally around the world that we find beautiful, that's why they're interesting. So I will be looking forward to this project. I think it's going to be interesting. I think, from a land use perspective, this is the kind of thing we've seen it with a couple other projects, with the Coca-Cola project a little while ago, a couple other things, these larger infill sites where there was not anything particularly attractive. Case in point, light industrial site, and it's going to get redone into something better. And so I look forward to seeing more of those in Durham, and I'm glad that you chose us. Thank you.
Councilmember Cook.
Thank you. I just was reviewing the numbers, and I was just calculating the increase in students is quite drastic. Obviously there was not going to be any students there previously. Sure. But we're used to seeing $500 per student, and I see that what has been committed is less than half of that. So I was wondering if there is any interest in increasing that commitment to the Durham Public Schools, given the just sheer.
I had previewed this concern earlier with my clients. If you'll allow me a moment, I think they've had some time to consider it since then. So if you can allow me a moment, I'll just have
Thank you.
Talk to them. Yes, so they have just confirmed, we would increase that, we'd double it, so I think it's at 60,000 right now, and we could double it to 120,000. I see that Mr. Kane is writing furiously, so I imagine that's what he's jotting down.
That was all, thank you.
Councilmember Freeman?
Thank you. I just had a question for staff in regards to the, I guess during construction and the topography. Could you just speak to how water management would occur, or I should say water runoff would occur on an infill project like this with that negative elevation and positive elevation with properties nearby that might be impacted?
I can speak in general terms that there would be stormwater control measures required for this site. They would most likely be located at the lower elevations of the site in order to be able to capture the water from the higher runoffs. I'd probably actually defer to Dan Jewell or someone else on the team to, if you're looking for specifics as to how those ponds would be sized and so forth. Dan may know. I couldn't.
And where those ponds might feed to?
I'd be surprised if that was determined at this point, but I'll defer to Dan.
Yeah. You going to respond to that, Dan? Okay. I mean, I was just going to say the site, I mean, one of the challenging aspects of the site is that it has these riparian features. The riparian features, of course, exist in the low-lying areas, which actually I think probably makes it a little bit easier to contain the water on the site because naturally the water is wanting to be on the site. But Dan, you might have some more insight on that. I know you guys have been looking at it.
Evening, Dan Jewell, Thomas and Hutton. No, that's exactly correct. The site does drain naturally out underneath 885 eventually. We have done enough of analysis of the site to know that we can put in a combination of stormwater ponds, possibly some underground measures, capture that runoff so that it meets all of the city and state requirements for that. But there will not be, areas where water just sits and doesn't go anywhere and becomes stale. Mr. Kip's already left. I'm not sure if he's still here or not, but this site was terraformed 80 years ago, so that's why we have the topography that we do. But nature heals all wounds, and I think it has. If you'd looked at the site 30 years ago, like I did when I walked on it, it was pretty barren and piles of dirt and holes, and that's all repairing itself nicely, and we'll complete that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, these infill projects are going to be complicated like this, right? They're going to be challenging. And so I think you may have said, Mr. Ghosh, in the beginning, I drove the site today. The Brickworks, it's not a beautiful location, right? So what you all are doing, taking on this challenging project, is something I really appreciate. So I want to thank you for that.
I just want to convey, I hope, I see you scribbling notes, the architect, that, I would like to, I'm sure you've taken a look at the comprehensive plan and the characteristics that are called for in the comprehensive plan. And so, site design, building design, layout orientation, I just hope that as you move forward with this project, and I wish you the best of luck, that you'll be looking at how to arrange on this tricky site the buildings and design the buildings such that they are pedestrian and transit, especially with the transit access, that you get off the bus and it's transit oriented. So I just wanted to convey that. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking forward to it. I will say be as creative as you possibly can. Do the best that you can. Durham deserves great quality of living, and this is a very large site, and I think you have an opportunity to show, the developer, whoever they are, has an opportunity to show off, for lack of better terms. So let's see what you got. All right, any other comments, colleagues? Oh, yes, sir, Mr. King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to confirm for the record, before there's any motion, what I have as the 2 additional comments proffered tonight are that all apartment buildings will meet at a minimum, the bronze National Green Building Standard.
That's the apartments and the mixed-use buildings.
And mixed use, thank you. That's why we do this. And that the DPS contribution will increase to $120,000.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That being said, I'm going to entertain this motion to authorize the city manager to enter into a utility extension agreement with Brickworks Land LLC.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded. Madam Clerk, please open the vote. Please close the vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, and I'll also entertain a motion to adopt a consistency statement as required.
To adopt an ordinance amending.
Oh gosh, I missed the whole thing. I'll entertain a motion also to adopt an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance by taking property out of industrial light, residential urban 5, Falls Jordan Lake Watershed Overlay District B, and establishing the same as Planned Development Residential 19.811, Falls Jordan Lake Watershed Overlay District B.
Moved as read. Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Madam Clerk, please vote. Please close the vote. That was a lot that I missed out. The whole section.
The second motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you. And lastly, I'll entertain a motion to adopt a consistency statement as required by North Carolina General Statute Section 160D-605.
Move to adopt consistency.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Madam Clerk, please open the vote. Please close the vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you. Colleagues, we're going to take a 5-minute break because the ground is covered with snow, and I don't want to be here too late. Folks who are leaving, please be safe. But we'll take a 5-minute break to give our closed captioners a moment to rest your hands.
the department has a couple of new initiatives that you're using to try to recruit specific applicant types. So let's start with the 30-30 initiative, 30 by 30 initiative. What is the goal of that program and why is it needed?
So traditionally, law enforcement has been a male-dominated field, and we want to change that. So we're looking to increase those numbers. We're pushing to get 30% more females into the department by the year 2030. By doing this kind of initiative, we're trying to highlight law enforcement for women and try to make it an appealing career move for someone that may not have thought that law enforcement was for them.
Can put some chains on his bike tires.
That's good.
In Ohio, we used to bike in the snow for fun.
Oh, I lived in Toledo for years.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
Went to grad school at Toledo.
I grew up east of Cleveland.
Okay.
In the snow belt.
Got it. Oh, yeah. The Lake Effect snow.
Yep. And actually, my brother and his family are still up there.
Is that right?
And they don't have half the amount of snow that they used to.
Beyond Akron?
No, they're Chagrin Falls.
Chagrin Falls? Yeah, I know where that is.
That
Mentor,
area.
yeah.
I grew up in Kirtland.
Okay.
You know Kirtland?
Yeah.
It's a little tiny place.
When I was in high school, we played a basketball game against Mentor.
Oh, you must have been at a big school. Mentor's a huge
Yeah, Toledo Scott. Yeah. We were big then. It's not big anymore. Let's bring it back, please. It's consistently covered.
Yeah.
You can't see the red line.
It's a solid intent.
Back to the huddle, Councilmember Baker. All right. Let's do this. All right, number 16. We have zoning map change, Davis Park West. This thing lives on the agenda, huh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of council. A request for a zoning map change has been received from Patrick Biker of Morningstar Law Group for one parcel of land totaling 10.847 acres and located at 350 and 362 Davis Drive and 900 Marion Avenue. The current zoning is mixed use with a development plan. The applicant proposes to change this designation to amend two design commitments on the existing development plan that was approved by City Council on March 4th, 2019. The applicant proposes to amend the existing development plan to allow for structured parking and office uses on the ground floor, in addition to the commercial and residential uses previously approved, as well as for those uses to face internal to the site and not just external. The applicant also commits to screening and architectural materials on the public-facing sides of the structured parking areas. The amended language is in Design Commitments 4 and 5 and is shown within bubbles on the proposed development plan. The Unified Development Ordinance requires amendments to existing development plans to be approved by council as they are technically zoning actions. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval at its November 12th, 2024 meeting. Thank you. Staff and the applicant are available for any questions.
You've heard the staff report. Thank you. Colleagues, are there any questions for staff?
I think I did have one question now.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Kane, so I know that the changes are small, and so you didn't review these changes against the comprehensive plan, as I understand from your packet.
Correct.
But there was this issue about, and I don't know if this is for you or for the applicant, but this issue about that there would be some uses facing internal, not just external. And so how does that align with our comprehensive plan in this zoning designation?
With the comprehensive plan in this zoning designation, we don't really have any comprehensive plan
language
policies that specific.
We prioritize sort of facing the street, kind of
We do prefer, yes, we do prefer for activity to be facing the street, to have entrances on the street, and I don't believe the request prohibits those things from happening, but the current interpretation is that they'd all have to be external. This would allow for some to be external and some to be internal.
Yeah, but then maybe in the question, we'll talk more about that. Thank you.
All good? All right. This is a public hearing. I'll now declare it open. Spiker, how much time do you think you need?
2 minutes.
3 minutes, please.
Good evening, Mayor Williams, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, members of the City Council. I'm Patrick Biker. I live at 2614 Stewart Drive. I'm an attorney with Morningstar Law Group. I'm here tonight representing Craig Davis Properties for this amendment to a previously approved development plan. The development plan we're talking about tonight and that we need to amend is for Davis Park West. It has been my privilege to be the zoning attorney for Davis Park for just about 20 years. I hope the City Council has utilized this section of the UDO for amendments to development plans, which is 3.5.12B, since that is the UDO section that governs this agenda item. Section 3.5.6 of the UDO is what applies to public hearings for zoning map changes with development plans, and that's the typical rezoning that you all hear and consider. I very much appreciate the staff report on this item, and all we are discussing tonight are modifications to design commitments 4 and 5 of the most recent development plan for Davis Park West. My recollection is that the City Council approved the Davis Park West development plan unanimously back in 2019. These design commitments were not discussed in any material way during that public hearing. The main reason for this amendment that we are requesting tonight is to address what turned out to be a misunderstanding. Long story short, our development plan approved in 2019 called for retail frontages to be along the streets of Davis Park West. When we started the site plan process, the folks in planning said that those streets included Davis Drive. Our team had viewed Davis Drive, which is a multi-lane road with a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit, not as a street, but as a major thoroughfare. Our plan was for Davis Park West retail spaces to front on the internal streets of Davis Park West. By way of example, if any of you have been to Meadowmont over in Chapel Hill, Craig Davis Properties is also the developer of the Meadowmont commercial area. And that is what we had in mind for Davis Park. Accordingly, we need to amend these two design commitments for Davis Park West to move forward and to avoid building retail space that opens out onto Davis Drive. For all these reasons, I respectfully ask for your approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Sorry I took 2 minutes and 5 seconds.
Thank you. All right. You're the only speaker that I had signed up. You're the only speaker that I had signed up for this. So at this time, I'll declare the public hearing closed and back before the council. Councilmember Rist.
So is that the answer? So you don't want to face Davis Drive. That's why but that Davis Drive is that's the sort of the whatever you're being asked to sort of like face externally to Davis Drive, and you're saying you don't want to do that. Yeah.
That's exactly right. There will be retail street frontages. They'll just be on the internal street. I hope all of you had a chance to drive around in Davis Park West. It's a neighborhood. We're very, very happy with how it's turned out, and Craig Davis has put an awful lot of his time and expertise into that. What we're trying to do is have the retail spaces be on the traffic calming, pedestrian oriented streets that still allow vehicles to come in and park so that the retail establishments will be able to thrive. We don't want to have a coffee shop that fronts on Davis Drive where cars are going by at least 50 miles an hour. I used to ride my bike on that road, and let me tell you, the cars are flying. And so we just want to make sure that we have a pedestrian-oriented, with vehicular access, retail area in the center of the site. Yes, sir. It'd be very similar to Meadowmont. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other comments? All right. At this time, I'll entertain the motion to adopt an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance by taking a property out of mixed use with a development plan and establishing the same as mixed use with the development plan.
Which is read.
Second.
I move to properly seconded. Madam Clerk, please up the vote. Please close the vote.
First motion passes unanimously.
All right, and lastly, I'll entertain a motion to adopt a consistency statement as required by NCGS section 160D-605.
Move to adopt consistency.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Madam Clerk, please open the vote. Please close.
7-0.
All right, thank you. And number 18, public hearing on economic development incentive agreement with LSD Jones and Sons Incorporated. Welcome.
Thank you. Mayor Williams and members of council, my name is Chris Dickey with the Office of Economic and Workforce Development. Before using the item to consider approval of a proposed agreement between the City of Durham and Ellis Jones and Sons Incorporated. Ellis Jones Incorporated plans to renovate a 4,732 square foot building that would allow for funeral home facility to provide greater comfort and accessibility for families, in addition to providing much needed community space. The renovation redevelopment project would serve to promote the continued revitalization and vitality of a targeted portion of the community development area located in northeast central Durham. The project, when completed, will provide flexible stake that can host various community events, meetings, and gatherings, and stimulate new business development and provide job opportunities, potential job opportunities for local residents. The total cost of the investment, private investment is $859,000, public cost is $250,000, producing a 2.9 ratio of private to public funding. A major priority of the City of Durham is increasing and strengthening the economic stability of the city. The proposed project, when completed, will be a key step in implementing the neighborhood assessment plan that was approved by City Council. This assessment plan calls for renovation of blighted and underutilized buildings as a means of attracting private capital investment to promote business development and stabilization in the City of Durham's community development area. The opportunity to attract this type of capital investment is somewhat challenging since it is considered high risk for successful economic development. The project will serve as a catalyst to attract additional business and development in the area. Staff endorses this project, which will be an asset in promoting the vitality of traditionally underutilized business, including minority and women-owned business ownership. This directly addresses a major goal of the City of Durham's updated strategic plan, FY23, one of OED's shared economic development project. One of OEW's shared economic developments project is a Durham Legacy Program, which leads to building a better Durham community, an ecosystem of strategies and initiatives that support business stabilization, business succession planning, and supports the growth and expansion of minority-owned businesses. OED is a collaborator in building key partnerships that increases the technical assistance capacity in Durham's small business ecosystem and helps to preserve the wealth amongst minority-owned legacy businesses, as well as historically underserved residents working at local business. The LSD Jones project is also in line with the goals and objectives of the Neighborhood Revitalization Grant and Incentive. At this time, I'm open for questions.
Thank you. You've heard from staff. Are there any questions before I open it up to the public?
So I have a question. So this is our first time we've done an incentive deal like this. So we're going to have a public hearing. You're going to open that up separately, or? Just in terms of process.
Basically treating it as a regular hearing.
It is.
But it is a public hearing. All right. So at this time, I will declare this public hearing open.
Thank you, Mayor Williams and Mayor Pro Tem Middleton and City Council. My name is Nina Jones Mason. I am fourth generation funeral director at LSD Jones Funeral Home here in Durham, Durham native, and a proud member of the Durham Legacy Business Group. I had the opportunity to join this legacy group a number of years ago, and it has just been such a valuable resource full of support for our very small business. It came to us that we were looking to need to make improvements to grow Our business, we do have a 4,000 square foot building that was built in 1950. We have upstairs of that facility that is unusable currently in its current state. It probably hasn't been touched since 1980s. I think with my grandfather or great-grandfather, but it is my desire to renovate that building, have capital improvements, bring the building up to code. And we were, through the Legacy program, we were introduced to this incentive program that would help us to do those capital improvements. And so we started this application process to do that and to help and support our business. Being a part of the Legacy program, it just has introduced us to a lot of things, including the NC Works program that we've been able to use to bring jobs to the community. We look forward to being able to do more of that. This improvement will create more workspace than we currently have, and therefore we will be able to also have more jobs available for people, and creating the community space that in this very Northeast Central Durham has definitely changed over the years. I think many of you, especially those that are from Durham, know that it's changed a lot, but being able to create community space to come together in that area would be very helpful, and we found that many people are looking for that. So in this whole project, we look forward to being able to make those changes that can not only help our business, but also help the community.
Thank you. I do have a speaker signed up, and then I'll bring you before the council. Ms. Latasha the Best Gaddy. Latasha Best Gaddy.
All right. Good evening, esteemed members of the City Council, the Mayor, and all of the fellow residents of Durham. Again, my name is Latasha Best-Gaddy. I'm the owner of Infinity Bridges, and I stand before you in favor and on behalf of LSD Jones and Sons Funeral Home. I've been working with them for a number of years to really reimagine not only what the next succession plan is for them, but also how they can continue to grow. LSD Jones and Son is not just a business, it's a legacy. It has been the pillar of strength for families in their most vulnerable moments, providing compassionate care, cultural understanding, and dignity for those who have lost. For generations, and as we heard today, for 4 generations, this family's owned this establishment and has served not only as a trusted partner in helping honor the loved ones that have passed, but also our community. What makes LSD Jones and Sons exceptional is its commitment to more than just funeral services. They are a hub for the community connection, offering resources and education for those that are entering their end-of-life planning, and making sure that there is a healing and unity for the families. The funeral home has been a model of professionalism, treating every family regardless of background or economic status. It is part of Durham's rich history and diversity that we have definitely cherished over the years and support these types of institutions. It is among a few of minority funeral homes that are local and owned and operated in Durham. And so for this, we just want to be able to answer any questions, but we have been working on how they can take this second floor renovation to really help them to not only grow, but increase the staff, and then also help serve the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are all of the signups I have at this time. I'll declare the public hearing closed and back before the council. Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you. I was going to ask a question, but I'm good. I did want to just thank and appreciate, just knowing what LSD Jones has been in our community for, as you said, 4 generations. I know that over the time, since I've lived in Durham, what especially pops up for me is how you responded in COVID and how quickly. I mean, I just want to say I thank you for making that personal touch for folks who were experiencing really hardships and trying to make sure that they were able to say their farewells and goodbyes to their family members. And I also want to say that to the conversation we had a little earlier around gun violence in Durham, there's no real tangible report that shows how impactful our Black family-owned funeral homes have been in responding in some of the most dire situations to gun violence and providing that care that's necessary for the families to even get past or to move forward. And I just want to say, I really want to just expand and in this space and say, this is the least that we could do and trying to provide supports, because I do know that the reparatory work has not started yet, and this is at least a little bit that we can start to thread that needle on. And I do want to thank staff for bringing this forward and making sure that they understand that it's important that we do this around our legacy businesses, especially Black-owned businesses that have experienced a different kind of hardship with the way that ownership of property has occurred in this country. And so I just want to lift that up and say that. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and hear and amen to everything that Councilmember Freeman has said. When I ultimately and finally leave this seat, probably one of the regrets I'll have is that I didn't have more opportunities to vote on these type of economic development incentive agreements. It's a powerful tool that is at our disposal as a local government, where we get to put our money where our mouth is. But what I love about them also is they're performance-based. Before we put our money where our mouth is, the recipient has got to put something up as well. You can't have a serious conversation about the DNA of Durham and not talk about this family. And I want to thank you for the years. Since the mid-20th century, this family has served Durham. I cannot tell you the number of stories that I can personally talk about their intervention and their involvement in the lives of our residents and citizens at some of the most vulnerable and challenging times in their lives. So I'm proudly supporting this agreement and looking forward to another almost 100 years of impact in the city of Durham. And thank you so much for what you do and what you continue to do. The stuff we hear about and the stuff we don't hear about that will never make the newspaper. So looking forward to supporting this. I urge all of my colleagues to do so as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is my first incentive deal on the council, so appreciate the presentation from Mr. Dickey. And I just want to say at the outset that I am going to be a tough sell on any incentive deal. If you Google my name, in a previous life I did a lot of work on this issue of the whole use and abuse of development incentives at the local level, right? So this is a real issue. And again, Google me, you'll find way back when reports, presentations, so forth. In this case, we're not talking about billions of dollars for Apple, right? We're not talking this kind of deal. This is a small deal, neighborhood deal. If there's a case to make for the use of these cash incentives to promote economic development, it is in the case of a small business like this where we're bringing economic vitality to communities that have been underinvested in. So this is the case you would make for incentives. So I appreciate the investment in Northeast Central, the family legacy business, the contribution to local growth and the social fabric. Where I do have questions, though, is around the public investment here. That's my big question. And so we got a table from Mr. Dickey and staff. And so my question largely goes to the issue of jobs. Now, we with these incentive deals, the whole idea is we want to create jobs. But as I understand from the policy, to get credit for this, these got to be living wage jobs, right? And so as I read the table here, there are 5 jobs that will be created in the next 5 years, looks like. Is that correct?
Right. When you finish.
Yeah. And so as I read this table, it sounds like 3 of those jobs, as I read them, are living wage jobs. 2 of those jobs are not living wage jobs. So as I read this, we've got 3 jobs created over the next 5 years for a sum of $250,000. And that's my question is that the right use of public funds?
So if I can, let me explain the purpose of the Neighborhood Revitalization Fund as a part of the economic development policy. if we go into the policy under Section 2, there's a specific section that speaks to neighborhood revitalization grant. And in that grant, it says that basically what we're looking to do is to go into areas to try to promote economic development for redeveloped property. It does not focus on job creation. Job creation is a part of another part of the economic development policy. When filling out the application, we asked the business owner to project what jobs they're going to create, but there's nothing in the incentive. If you look at our actual incentive agreement, it really focuses on the capital expenditures that are being done to the building, not jobs per se. What we do ask as a part of that, and I think she said a little bit earlier, is that she does have some work experience in working with an NC Work Center. The NC Work Center, in reference to the jobs that she's going to create, the only thing that she has to do is really give us job description, put it on the website, and then what we will do is we will assist her in trying to find viable candidates. That's the only thing that we have from a job growth standpoint. So the focus of this particular incentive agreement or grant that we're talking about is more capital intensive than anything.
Okay, so I'm just reading the table here, which says this is about new full-time permanent positions created as a result of this project, right? Note, eligible job creation consists of new full-time permanent positions with salaries equal to or greater than the city's prevailing living wage. So that's part of the table here.
Yeah. So what this is that this particular application that you're looking at now, it's a sort of all-inclusive of all our grants that we have. So if we look at our incentive policy, a person would have to fill this out for a facade grant, which is not operating right now, a merchandise-based incentive grant. If we were doing a large hotel downtown, that's a different type of grant, a lot more money. And if they were creating jobs, what would happen is, and I'm getting a little bit out of, I won't say I'm getting a little bit out of my league here, but what would happen is that you would have to create the job, and then you would get something like a $1,500 incentive for having a job, and then if you retain a job, you can get a $2,500 incentive after 3 years later. In addition to that, there could be a capital incentive related to that too. So there are different types of incentive grants that the Office of Economic and Workforce Development does. It's been a while since we've done a completely job incentive, just job-only incentive.
Okay, so you're saying this is an incentive based on capital investment, not job creation.
That's what I'm saying.
So you may want to consider a different table for those jobs that are, or for those deals that are capital and not job creation, because this certainly says the jobs that aren't living wage jobs don't qualify. So that was confusing to me. I guess the other thing then is if the issue then is about capital investment, I know that part of the factors you use in evaluating whether you approve a deal or not is this whole idea of a but-for calculation, right? But for this investment, this project wouldn't happen. So can you tell me more about that but-for calculation that your department did?
Okay, so if you look at the executive summary, that the OG project overview. So what they did was they submitted the application, okay, and then they gave us a project overview. And for about 2 or 3 years, what we've been doing is we've been working with this organization through our Durham Legacy program and through our Durham Legacy program. And what they did was they worked together in reference to the uses of funds. So what happens is that I'm able to calculate in reference to, once they submit a project budget to me, what I can do at that particular time and moment is go in and ascertain what are the actual capital improvements that are applied to this project. And the way that I do that is then I apply that to the capital improvements that are approved in our economic development policy. And then what I can do as an analyst, or what the department does as an analyst, that we can go up to 50% of the actual capital expenditures. In this case, we didn't go up to 50%. What we did was for every dollar they put in, I think it was like they put in, I think 3 to 1, close to 3 to 1 investment that was there in reference to capital improvements that were there. So that's how we sort of analyze the deals in reference to economic development. And then we look at the potentiality, again, in reference to what's there, and then we look and see who potentially they can hire in reference to a local contractor. In this program, I can actually Council has given me the opportunity to run this program for about 20 years. And what I can say of all the programs that I've been able to touch on is that when they say they're going to use a local contractor, they do. It's small enough where they can control it. They hire local contractors. In a lot of cases, they do hire a lot of local residents that are there, although that's not required of them. They have to make a good faith effort. And these projects have done that.
I'm not sure they answered my question about the but-for, though, like, because the whole, isn't the factor or the principle that without this investment from the city, this investment wouldn't happen. So is that not a calculation? I understand the use of the funds, but I'm asking about the but-for piece.
So the but-for, normally in these type of deals that we do, normally they can anticipate what they can do before going to the bank. Normally the city is first in. Very rarely, because capital access for a lot of these small businesses is a major problem. It's a major problem getting access to capital. What happens with this particular program is the city steps in and sort of helps leverage the programs where the banks feel more comfortable coming in to support the project. So it's a grant, and when they go in, what happens is a bank can literally do a higher percentage of lending and won't feel like their asset is exposed.
Yeah, I understand. I guess my other question is, from the public perspective, can you give me a sense then, if this is not an investment being made in return for job creation, right? This is the capital investment. So in return for these public dollars, what's the public return? Have you done a ROA on the public investment?
So the public return on here is I think what I've said in the overview here is that the city has invested money into the Durham Legacy Program. And one of the shared equity initiatives is that how do we protect a lot of these legacy businesses out there, because a lot of them they're just going under. So what is it we can do as a city? And the city has given me the opportunity to provide intensive capital technical assistance to try to give to these businesses. In addition to that, we have a neighborhood revitalization grant program that we put together. The city wins by continuing to have business like there, which are important to the cultural fabric of our city. If they go away, then what happens is that Durham is not going to exist and look the way it does. So that's sort of not the quantitative way of looking at it. That's more of a qualitative statement that I'm trying to say what's going on here.
Yeah. I'd love to see more, in terms of whether is it like tax revenue as a result of this, or some kind of quantitative way to see what exactly the return on public investment is. So that's my question.
Well, I think when it's all over said and done with, what we will see is, and I can't give you specifics, but I know when this project's all over and said, it's a little bit too small to go and bring this project over to the Durham tax office and say what the anticipated. On the larger projects, what we normally would do, we would take this project and bring it over to the tax administrator. And then what we would do is we would say, well, this is the amount of taxes that are going to be, that when this project is done, that we can see happening here. On these smaller projects, we don't do that. But what I can say is that this project, once this building is completed, it will increase the tax base around the area. That's there. In addition to that, what it does is that you're solidifying, again, it's more of a qualitative thing, is that you're solidifying a building that really needs some work. In addition to that, on the community side, is that if you've heard from the council members here, you've heard from this family here, and you've heard from Latasha here, is that they are bringing community. Community can come to this building and really take advantage of it. And if you look into the incentive agreement there, for at least 5 years, okay, they are open, and it's going to be a part of a promissory note that happens, that they have to have this building open to the community. And that's clearly outlined in the incentive agreement that's here.
Thank you. I'm going to intervene. I need us to bring it to a close because it's getting really dangerous outside, and I want to get us home. Councilmember Ritz, thank you for this line of questioning. We had this conversation about 3 years ago. Councilmember Jillian Johnson had proposed to your line of question. It is more so a value proposition that we decided here in Durham. So it is a policy, so it's going to be hard to qualify, being able to qualify rather than quantify it. It's more than just hard numbers. And this was a collaboration with Councilmember Johnson and myself at the time around, I had asked for something and we merged it into this legacy project some time ago. But I think we should talk more about it.
Yeah, and I just want, if I can say it, like I understand the theory here. I think we can also do more qualitative analysis to make sure that we, in addition to the fine work this family is doing in their business, that we have a better case to make quantitatively about the use of public dollars. So.
Yep. I'm going to go here to Councilmember Caballero, then to Mayor Pro Tem and Freeman, and then we'll bring it to a close.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I just wanted to say that this is a good project. I look forward to supporting it. It is a conversation that has happened on this council in various iterations. The legacy, specifically Black-owned businesses, and having an understanding of when we talk about shared economic prosperity, there's lots of tools at our disposal to make that a reality in Durham, and some of them are going to be more traditional maybe, and others are going to think, I think, in this way, kind of outside the box. I'm really glad that you basically got a cohort and community of other legacy businesses, and that the vision that previous leaders had on, how do we support businesses came to fruition, and that you felt that you could come and ask for this. So I'm glad that those decisions were made, and I'm glad that it's working. I'd like to see more of them. We've only had a handful of these types of incentives over the years. I think maybe this is my 4th or 5th max. But it's always a good day in Durham when we're helping community members, and we are leaning into that vision of community maybe done a different way. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very quickly, and I appreciate, we are fiduciaries, and I appreciate Councilmember Riss' questions, but I think an important qualitative distinction needs to be made. There are different types of incentive agreements. There are incentive agreements to bring big multinational corporations to us, and that's where we get into, the type of jobs. And then there are incentives to keep businesses here who have been part of our fabric. This is, and I'm surprised because there are certain buzzwords here that enemies of this type of stuff would pick up on. Economic development, you should read that as equity. This is part of our equity program. The reason why some of these businesses can't pay a living wage out the gate is because governments did things in the past to their communities and put them in a position where they couldn't do it. So for the government now to come and say, well, behave as if none of this stuff happened, has been part of the problem. This is part of Durham's attempt to address historic and systemic inequities in these type of communities. Your questions are correct, Councilmember Riss, but it's important. It ain't that kind of deal we're talking about. This isn't Apple. This isn't, Google. This is part of the DNA of Durham, who, if we're lucky and God smiles upon us, they won't be one of the stories that gentrification ran out. This is our attempt at trying to stem some of that tide that we've been seeing in our communities time and time again. But keep that energy, because we are fiduciaries. Those are the type of questions we need to ask. This just ain't that conversation for this particular deal. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I just wanted to make sure to again thread the needle. It would probably be helpful to have the reverse conversation and kind of dial in on how much racism has impacted Black businesses in this city, and then also to figure out how to tie that into some of the work that's happening with the Race Equity Commission, because I do think that it's going to be a problem that's going to arise more and more over the next few years, and attacks on programs like this will come from lines of questionings like we heard tonight. And so I just want to make sure we're prepared for that conversation in a better way. I do appreciate Councilmember Riss' line of questioning, but I think those are questions that should be, anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. But I do want to make sure that the merits of what Mayor Pro Tem is saying is exactly what's driving my agita tonight. But this has got to be a different conversation, and because we're not doing the reparative work in the way that we should be, and we're making these making stuff fit in a box that it doesn't belong. I think that's part of the issue. But I do want to make sure that if it is at all possible to figure out, because I didn't include this in my budget request, but I would have requested to make sure more funds were available in this specific program this year or this cycle or this next year coming, because I do know that it's going to go away. That's what I would say. Thank you.
All right. Well, no more comments? Good. So I am now going to entertain a motion to authorize the city manager to execute an economic development agreement with LSD Jones and Sons Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $250,000 for a building renovation project at 419 Dowd Street, Durham, North Carolina.
Moved as read.
Second.
All right. I didn't give comments because I wanted to get out of here, but I'm really excited about this project. I hope that we can do more. And I'm always late doing things, such as turning my budget request in, so I just might add to it. But I want to do more like this. This is an investment back into Durham. I know if you can expand your capacity, you can expand the services you're providing in many ways. And I think that we're going to be able to do more projects like this and other types as well. Councilmember Riss, I just texted you so we can talk about this more, so be on the lookout. All right, Madam Clerk, please open the vote. Please close the vote.
The motion passes 6-1 with Councilmember Rist voting no.
Thank you all so much. I am going to pass it over before we leave to Manager Ferguson. I did make a comment earlier that Durham Public Schools is on a 2-hour delay tomorrow. They will actually be closed tomorrow. I do want everyone to be safe. It is a nice covering of snow outside at 21 degrees. So I'll now pass it over to Manager Ferguson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. During the last 30 minutes of been able to have communications with staff, we are announcing a delayed opening for City Hall tomorrow. City Hall will be opening at 11 o'clock, and we are also announcing service changes for solid waste. Solid waste collections will be closed. Just briefly, the Public Works Department did pre-treat our streets with brine, but at these temperatures, brine becomes ineffective in the low 20s, and so despite the fact that we've treated it in every way we can, road conditions are expected to be icy in the morning, so a delayed opening is in effect. We'll continue to monitor conditions and make any adjustments if necessary, but wanted to get that out now, and our communications team is already getting that announced through communication channels to employees and also to the media, so wanted to take this opportunity to share that. Thank you.
Thank you all so much, and I rode my bike here, so if I can get a ride, that'll be great. It is 9:47. We are adjourned.
Oh, they added Durham County.